Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great beginning to their new week out there so far. Here to speak on today's weather and many other things also. But the first thing we will cover is what could potentially happen. For today, we'll speak on current conditions, the latest outlooks first, and then we'll break down the country section by section. There's a couple areas that we will zoom into and get a little bit more detailed on that do run the higher risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity for today. So we'll give you a state-by-state breakdown of those areas. And after we get done talking about today's weather, we'll speak on the couple of days out ahead of us as far as severe weather and flooding chances. And then we'll give you a detailed update on the tropics for the back half of the video. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anyone has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can do that. And it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the latest conditions. We got a surge of rain moving across Montana, North Dakota. We got rain spinning around down here in the Four Corners region, especially Arizona and areas of New Mexico. We got a stalled frontal boundary down here in southern Florida. That just continues to bring a lot of downpour and storm activity. And for areas that really need the rain also, we just don't need it all at one time, but we're getting a lot of it right now. We got to watch this stall boundary because this could provide a little bit of a spin up off the coast of the southeast a little bit later this week. And a little bit of moisture we're waking up to for areas of New England. But that is current conditions, the latest watches, warnings, and advisories. We got red flag warnings up in the UP starting to get pretty dry, so be careful with the fire danger. We got flood watches in areas of northern New Mexico, and we got some more red flag warnings across northern areas of California, even a few winter weather advisories in the higher elevations of Montana. But it's a pretty quiet look to the lower 48. I know my head's kind of blocking off southern Florida, but you guys don't have, I'm surprised, y'all don't even have flood watches. So the Storm Prediction Center outlook here. We have a large slight risk, and we could upgrade to an enhanced risk. They've had some part of this label for the last several days now from the Storm Prediction Center, but I will mention Florida first. You guys have a marginal risk of strong and severe thunderstorm activity. And then we have a slight risk, which basically goes from southwest Minnesota through portions of southeast, South Dakota, northwest Iowa. I don't want to get my directional mixed up here. And a good chunk of Nebraska extends all the way into southeast Wyoming, eastern sections of Colorado, the western half of Kansas, and gets into western and the panhandle of Oklahoma and the panhandle of Texas. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Marginal risk is around that. What's driving this? If we look at the tornado outlook, it's pretty small. I mean, it's kind of tucked into portions of this slight and marginal risk. Looks like it's mainly in the slight risk, but there is a 2% risk of a tornado. Areas like North Platte, Kearney, Grand Island, up to Sioux Falls, Sioux City, all the way into the section, very small section of northeast Colorado. You have a 2% risk of a tornado. The wind threat, pretty much the entire slight risk area has a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. You got to watch out for clusters of storms in this area for today. The hail threat, it's the shape of it's a little bit different here, but if you live in this yellow area, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Amarillo over to Cheyenne, North Platte, Lexington, Grand Island, Nebraska up to Sioux City, Sioux Falls, all of western Kansas, and gets all the way up here to like Brookings and even into sections of southwest Minnesota. So the excessive rainfall outlook, we do have a slight risk of, I'm brain farting here, slight risk of a flooding to occur in the southern tip of Florida, 15% risk down here in like Miami. Be careful of that. And then in this yellow area right here, this is a 15% risk of flash flooding occurring in areas where we do expect strong to severe thunderstorm activity. We could have multiple rounds of rain in this area, so be careful with that. And we break it down section by section. The southeast first. The only area to really talk about is all this moisture hanging out on the Gulf side and on the Atlantic side down here in Florida. We got a lot of thunderstorm activity in the Bahamas. If you're vacationing there, very stormy day. But these storms will, become widespread for the entire southern half of the peninsula of Florida. Could get some downpour activity even in the panhandle. but we continue. These are just kind of dancing around, and a flooding threat could materialize later this afternoon, this evening. And just taking a closer look at this here, starting off 9 a.m. I mean, look at all this thunderstorm activity. We get into about lunchtime. Not a whole lot going on, but then we take it to about 5 p.m. Look at all that thunderstorm activity ongoing, especially for southeastern areas, the peninsula of Florida. Definitely a lot going on here. Flooding, rains possible, and some of these could pack a punch. I mean, there's a marginal risk, so some of these are going to be strong to severe. We get into not 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, heavy rain still hanging out like around the Everglades, maybe as far north as like Fort Myers, Miami. So a lot of rain could potentially fall down here. And then things will calm down by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, but we could do it again tomorrow. But rainfall between now and 8 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 to 5 inches of rain could fall in Miami. Maybe a little bit less up the coastline of both coastline, the west and the east. But in general, I mean, anywhere from 1 to as much as 5 inches of rain south of Orlando for anybody. So a lot of rain potential in this area. Just that stalled front. Influx of tropical moisture. We're certainly going to get a lot of rain and storms. Now up here in the Northeast, there ain't a whole lot to talk about. We'll get rid of some of the shower activity in Maine today. Might get some sunshine. Might get a couple more showers that might drift through the evening. They could make it all the way as far south as like Boston, but everywhere else in New England looks fine, looks okay. So we're really good up here. Nothing too crazy going on. Now we get into the southern plains. A broad look at things. Big push of moisture flies through New Mexico, so we're going to get widespread shower and thunderstorm activity really anywhere in New Mexico. Getting into western Texas as we get into the afternoon hours. And then we start to get into the evening. There's a low ejecting here, and just a lot of thunderstorm activity here in western sections of Texas and Oklahoma. We got some thunderstorm activity also up here in like southwestern sections of Kansas. And I got the Monday funk this morning. I have absolutely no flow. But we get into the overnight hours, and all this energy will eventually spread west to east here. But we will give you kind of a state-by-state breakdown. This is starting off around midday today. Then we take it to about early this afternoon. You can see the thunderstorm activity sort of just surging through Amarillo, getting up towards the panhandle of Oklahoma, gets into western Oklahoma. But you can tell it just doesn't have that look that supports significant severe weather. It looks outflow boundary driven. Looks like you got a boundary kind of shooting off ahead of these storms. So storms possible, Elk City up to the Woodward area, and Childress getting some storm activity. And then we take it to about midnight, and these thunderstorms start to surge through central areas of Oklahoma, and then eventually get all the way up to northeast Oklahoma. Could have some storms down here too that's not showing up. This is 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Then we're waking up tomorrow morning. Now, take it up to Colorado, starting off this morning. Nothing going on, but then widespread energy shoots across the Rockies, and then eventually tries to strengthen as it gets into the eastern plains of Colorado. But this particular run doesn't get a whole lot of crazy activity going on here in northeast Colorado, really at all. As far as, when we're trying to search for those vibrant reds and oranges and stuff like that, this honestly just looks like normal run-of-the-mill heavy rain thunderstorm activity. Nothing too crazy at all. But this is around 2 a.m. tonight, getting a lot of heavy rain across the Front Range. So definitely maybe a small flooding risk across this area, but just watch out for a lot of activity. Now we take it up to Kansas, starting off around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. We got some storms down here near Liberal, Garden City, Dodge City, and these could pack a punch right off the dot. This is 9 p.m. Be mindful of this. Could have a tornado risk with this, but I would look for the higher tornado risk to be a little bit further north in Nebraska. But we continue to get to about midnight tonight. Thunderstorms are surging across central Kansas, and then eventually they could actually strengthen later on tonight. This is 3 a.m. in the morning. Storms actually try to intensify around Manhattan, Topeka, getting closer to Kansas City. So could be a loud kind of after midnight period if you're sleeping here in eastern sections of Kansas. So could get a lot of rain in this area too. If we pull up let's see. This is just between now and around 7 p.m. tomorrow. So really it's the eastern sections of Kansas that could get 1 to 2 inches of rain. So the north central U.S. moving forward here, we'll get that area of storms we got to watch for early this afternoon, early to mid-afternoon, I would say, in western areas of Minnesota. See this kind of complex of storms here. We'll take a closer look at this here in a second. That energy will eventually try to make it all the way into Wisconsin, but weaken. Then we got to watch out for the higher tornado threat in Nebraska. I would say if there's going to be any tornadoes, it'll probably happen in Nebraska today, but could happen to state north or south, or really south if anything. But you can see storms just kind of dancing around down there in the state of Nebraska, and eventually as we get into the wee hours of the morning, could have an organized line of storms making its way into western Iowa, and then we'll wake up tomorrow morning to just a whole lot of wet times across areas of the plains into the Midwest. But just a closer look at Nebraska. Starting off this morning, we take it to about early afternoon, not a whole lot going on. Then energy will eject off through Rockies, and this is the only area that I'm really, I wouldn't say really concerned, but the most concerned about. See these storms, how they explode. This is around 7 p.m. These storms could produce very large hail, and they could produce a tornado and some strong gusty winds. But if any storms are going to produce tornadoes, it's in this corridor right here in Nebraska. You get to 8 p.m., 9 p.m., there's a chance these really can gill up pretty fast. So that would probably limit the tornado threat, but there still is going to be the possibility for some tornadoes. I mean, really stretching right across, kind of at an angle from southwest to northeast Nebraska across the state. And this is 10 p.m., 11 p.m. This energy will eventually sink down to the North Platte, Kearney, Grand Island corridor here and deliver some really heavy rain and heavy thunderstorm activity. And then these storms could eventually get all the way to Lincoln, Omaha in the wee hours of the morning, overnight tonight. And then we could just have a whole lot of rain just kind of dancing around and greet us here, especially for the southern half of Nebraska as we're getting into tomorrow morning. Now, if we take a look at how much rainfall could end up falling in this state, that's between now and 7 p.m. tomorrow. And that area in red right there, they're trying to say 2.5 inches of rain could fall, but it's widespread 1 to 2.5 inches of rain could fall across central and eastern Nebraska. Now we take it on up to Iowa. Not a whole lot going on between now and around lunchtime. We get into later in the afternoon. Then boom, watch out in northwestern sections of the state. Those look like some pretty intense thunderstorms. And it takes a while for this energy to kind of sink down to the central portion of the state, if it ever does, between now and the next 24 hours. But eventually, I want to watch a pretty intense line of storms, 2 to 5 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning, that eventually makes its way into western areas of Iowa, especially southwestern. And these will greet you guys in central Iowa, Des Moines, Dodge City, Ames, as we're waking up tomorrow morning, but could begin to kind of lose some steam after that. But just watch out for some tornadoes in these areas too. We are certainly going to have a risk the further west you get, southwest areas of Iowa. Now up here in Minnesota, we're going to have some energy, kind of a cluster of storms that enters the western areas of Minnesota, sort of around 1 to 4 o'clock this afternoon. So if you live out in that region, be careful. Maybe even as far north as Fargo and as far south as Brookings, which you do have a slight risk there. But these storms will really get going, and I would watch for maybe a little bit of an increased severe weather risk here. You see these cells here in southwestern Minnesota, well west of Minneapolis. These could be sneaky, produce a tornado. That's around 5 p.m. And we start to get into about 6, 7 o'clock. We could get a line of storms sweeping through Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And they might eventually make it to Rochester, but it does look like a lot of this weekend's later into this evening. So the western U.S., we got surges of rain kind of moving through North Dakota, areas of Montana this morning. And then we're just going to get a huge influx of moisture getting going here across the Four Corners region, just the central and southern Rockies. A lot of thunderstorm activity. All this sort of spinning around. Just a closer look at this morning. We take it to about this afternoon. You see thunderstorm activity is just everywhere. I mean, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. Just a lot of rain swinging across this area as energy is pretty much ejecting across this area. But, could get a good bit of rain in this area. Let's pull up how much rainfall could happen between now and about 6 p.m. tomorrow. many areas. A quarter to a half to 3/4 of an inch of rain is possible. So it's a good bit of rain for certain areas out here, especially Arizona and New Mexico. So temperatures, it's always hard to shake spring. Well, it's really hard to shake winter, I would say, up here in the Northeast. So cooler temperatures, 50s, 60s, nothing too abnormal up there. 70s, more like a spring day here in the Mid-Atlantic. The Southeast, 80s, nothing too crazy hot. Thank goodness, because I mentioned that my AC went out late last week, and they did a leak test on it. It's low on Freon, and they said they would come out in another couple weeks to figure out where it was leaking. Well, it leaked out all of the Freon over the weekend, so it's a pretty big leak. So I'm hoping that the heat will hold off until they fix what's going on, because my AC is off right now. So, but it is definitely hot across Texas. It's just that time of the year where it gets hot there, and it pretty much stays hot for the foreseeable future. But there is an area of cooled air up here in Montana, North Dakota, where there's just a lot of energy and it's just keeping temperatures down. Not quite as hot out west, but yeah. So Storm Prediction Center outlook, getting into tomorrow, the severe weather threat does shift, east, southeastward. But guys, I'll tell you, this isn't anything too crazy at all. I don't think. I mean, it's just kind of the same setup tomorrow compared to today. A lot of flow, kind of outflow boundary driven stuff, clean sweep throughs, if you will. But there is a slight risk that goes from Madison, Wisconsin, down into Texas, and everybody in between right here. A little bit closer look at this. And Oklahoma City, Kansas City included in this. The tornado threat, it will be there. A larger 2% risk, I would say. Goes all the way up from southern Wisconsin, all the way down to Wichita Falls, almost to Abilene, and everybody in between this green area. And then the wind threats, there is a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. And then the hail threat. There is a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger from southeastern Kansas through central Oklahoma and to northern areas of Texas. And there will be a bit of a flooding threat tomorrow too. I mean, I would say just normal run-of-the-mill type stuff, but it is much larger for a much larger area tomorrow. Once again, flash flooding threat for southern Florida, kind of like today, but the flooding threat does begin to shift into this area of the country. Kansas City, Oklahoma City, down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, all the way up into southern areas of Iowa. So 15% risk of flash flooding occurring in these regions. Now, there's a little bit of a severe weather threat as we get also into Wednesday, but it's only a marginal risk right now, so nothing too crazy. Now, an update on the tropics. No tropical activity is expected over the next 7 days, so that's the good news. So just want to start off by showing you this. But I'm watching, we keep talking about the flooding threat in southern Florida. This is because of a stalled frontal boundary, and if these boundaries don't move, these boundaries provide lift, and thunderstorm activity just will continue to fire around these boundaries. So sometimes these clusters of storms can get over the open waters, and this time of the year where the waters are starting to get much warmer, they can gain some tropical characteristics, and a little bit of a low-level spin can develop. And you can see that if we look at 850 millibars off the latest Euro, and we're going to run through a couple runs here. As we're starting to get into Wednesday morning, you're going to see this kind of blob of more vibrant colors, kind of the yellows, oranges, reds here, and this kind of gets thrown into Georgia, and then something gets going here. And if you look at the wind barbs, you see these little things right here. These are wind barbs. They're kind of rotating, just like it does with lower pressure, rotating just like this. Okay? And as they do, that indicates to us in the lower levels, 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air, there's a little bit of a low-level spin. I mean, a defined low-level circulation, I doubt it, but there is a little bit of a spin. This is getting into Thursday morning off the coast of South Carolina, and this will provide a little bit of more enhanced moisture, and this might get thrown into the Carolina coastline and just make it really unsettled, give us a lot of unsettled weather, especially for the back half of the week for the Carolina coastline. This eventually heads on off into the Atlantic, and it's pretty much harmless besides just tropical rains. And the GFS shows this too, develops just a little bit of a low-level spin. You can see it here. And then Thursday kind of gets thrown into the Carolina coastline. It's not much, but listen, we've seen little spins like this take names off the hurricane list. We've seen it time and time and time again. And it just wouldn't surprise me if this did something fishy out there off the coast of the southeast, if you will. And even look at the icon. I mean, we can only look at the upper level spin here, kind of in the mid levels, but it even shows it in the mid levels, 18,000 feet up in the air. Shows just some sort of energy right here, kind of almost an open wave that gets thrown and kind of grinds up against the Carolina coastline. As far as precipitation and what this looks like based off the Euro, I mean, you can see a big push of moisture hanging out over Florida, sections of Georgia. This is getting into Wednesday morning, then we get into Wednesday evening. A lot of moisture off the Georgia coastline, and eventually this sort of just works its way along the Carolina coastline, but it's also still throwing moisture all the way down to Florida. And I mean, even the North Carolina coastline, then it heads on off. So you can see how they've kind of inched some of the heavier rainfall predicted totals now closer to the Georgia and South Carolina coastline. Now, this is rainfall between now and like 8 a.m. Saturday, so a pretty long and kind of a pretty large stretch of time here. But I want to watch to see if they make some of these like 2.5, 3-inch rainfall totals and push it a little bit further inland. But if you're vacationing along like the Georgia and the Carolina coastline, certainly in Florida, the potential, especially down in Florida, the potential is there for a very wet week. And, you know, hate to be the bearer of bad news for anybody who planned their vacation for this week. But, guys, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. If you do notice a difference, there is. I spent a long time yesterday working on things. And right now, using my webcam, I tested my DSLR camera out for a while yesterday, and the visuals were coming in very well, but for whatever reason, my voice, my mouth movement to what I was saying was lagging a lot, and I'm just gonna have to spend some time tweaking that. But right now, this is just my regular webcam I've been using for almost 4 to 5 years now, and with the light that I have hitting my face now, and if you notice, I got my YouTube plaque up here, and I got some lights up here that really aren't going to show good unless it's dark outside. But things are coming together. It's not quite the way I want it to be, but you know what? I'm cool right now. I'm content. Got my own space. I've backed my desk up a little bit more, and I've looked to put things back here and just pictures and that my kids draw, or pictures that maybe you guys send me. Vicky, who is a loyal follower, I think she lives in North Carolina. She painted a picture of Rocket. I think I shared that with you guys last fall. Rocket. Anyways, just little knickknacks that you guys send me, or just maybe photography from storm chasing that I've done. But like Christmas time, I want to put a little mini Christmas tree behind me, just stuff like that. You guys know I love the holidays and fall and winter time. So looking forward to some things and figuring some things out. But hopefully it looks good. Got light shine on my face. Everything should be much brighter than it was. These shelves kicked my butt installing. But things like that always kick my butt. So you guys have a wonderful Monday. I'll talk to you again soon, and appreciate y'all very much. God bless.